Okay, Boker Tov, let's get started. Okay, we'll see how much ground we can cover today in Tachanun, where we discussed last week. I gave the introduction that the main section of verses in Tachanun is from the book of Daniel, which we sort of gave the background today. We'll pick up, go through them. This is, I don't know, well, I'll show it to you. I don't know, it's in my, on second page, it's the second paragraph. Batashem Elkeinu, we'll see in a moment. Discuss how Daniel is the first person to allude to the notion that one davens 3 times a day. That concept was apparently unknown until the time of Daniel. And of course, that becomes the basis of what we all do today. And Daniel is sitting in the 70th year from the time of the exile, or the way they calculated the 70 years. That wasn't so simple how to calculate it. And he realizes, 7 years is up. It's time we're going to come back to Jerusalem, rebuild the Beit Hamikdash. And that's the context of chapter 9 in Daniel, which we'll pick up on right now. So just let me share my screen and we'll show you the verses we'll do through the book of Daniel. Okay, so where are we going here? Okay, you don't, there you go. Okay, everybody sees it? But Shem Elokeinu. Okay, here it is. Okay. So basically, what this paragraph is, if you want to follow in your Siddur or here on the screen, basically is what we have a lot of this. We have sinned. We Jewish people have sinned. God, please have mercy upon us. Have mercy upon us for your sake, for your benefit. Forget about us. It doesn't look good for God if the Jewish people are suffering. And as we'll see here, he focuses on the suffering and desolation of the city of Jerusalem, which makes a lot of sense in the context, because, as I said, Daniel is talking the year 70 of the exile, when we're going to come back to rebuild Jerusalem. So that's going to be sort of an overarching theme about the desolation of Jerusalem, which you'll see in a certain sense parallels to Echa, which is about the desolation of Jerusalem, which was, according to our sages, written by Yirmiyahu. So, okay, so let's pick up and go through it hopefully relatively quickly. You, our Lord, our God, who took us out of Egypt, right? That's our covenant goes to Egypt, right? We've mentioned many times, the commentaries all discuss. We don't talk about God as the creator of the world. The relationship between God and the Jewish people is that the God of history, not the God of nature. God took us out of Egypt. That's what made us really into his people. Biyad chazaka, we know that expression a lot, took us out with a strong arm, whatever that means. And that action has made you, God, a name up to this day. We're talking approximately 1,000 years later, right? The Jewish people were in the land of Israel for 850 years, according to sort of, you go through Tanakh and the way Chazal calculated, 440 years from the time they arrived till they built the temple. And the first temple stood for 410 years, so that's 850 years. And then you have 70 years of exile. So that's basically 920 years, right? And then add the 40 years in the desert. So this Daniel is talking, it could be like we know, biblical counts, there's rounding and things are not always 100% precise. But basically, there's 960 years from the time that they left Egypt till Daniel is saying this prayer for the rebuilding of Jerusalem. They went to Israel, they built the temple, now it's lost. Chatanu tasach Hashem kayom hazeh, but you taking us to Egypt made for yourself a name. Chatanu rashanu, we've sinned and we're evil. What's the difference between sinning and evil? I'm not sure. What's chatanu? We sinned and we're evil, or is that because we sinned we're evil? Sounds like two different things. Chatanu and rashanu. We sinned and we're evil. Anybody want to?
Well,
Like I told you, very few of the Mefarshim that I've seen, anyways, talk about Tachanun like line by line, like they do in other places, like in the Shmon Esrei, of course, every word. Here, it's not just a paragraph to explain the whole thing. So we have a lot of individual freedom to interpret it. So it could be Rashanu is the outcome of Chatanu. When you
could be
see
that
Russia, I'm sorry.
you could be within the four corners of halakha and still be evil because you're
The Ramban. So you want to say, I didn't think of that, right? That a person, right? We're not only a halakhic community. As a matter of fact, I would say one of the criticisms of the modern religious community is that we're too halakhically focused. And in Mark Shapiro's book on Rav Kook, he discussed it on Monday. Rav Amital's Rav Amital said the founder of Yeshiva Har Etzion in Hungary, when he grew up, there was never this emphasis on halacha. The halacha, you fought the halacha, but it wasn't like, oh my God, nobody measured the matzah, and nobody asked all these crazy questions that they asked today in every little detail. There's a way of life you lived. We weren't so worrying about every, line in the Mishnah Berurah. There was no Mishnah Berurah, really. That's why. So the halacha is not enough. The halacha is a floor, not a ceiling. So the Ramban says, you can observe every halacha and be a disgusting person, be a naval b'shut haTorah. Sorry, that's how the Ramban explains the mitzvah to be holy. Kadoshim to you. What does that mean? It means you can sleep until 11 o'clock in the morning, watch television for 6 hours, read trashy novels, have 6 beers, and you haven't violated any technical halacha. You haven't done, there's nothing there that's against the halacha. But that's an Ava B'Shuter. So you want to say that's a difference, Chay to Rasha. Okay, interesting. The Rambam defines a Rasha, it's kind of a scary definition, as somebody who has 50% plus 1 sins. Of course, the Rambam defines it tzaddik as somebody who has 50 plus 1% righteousness. So the line between a tzaddik and a Rasha can be very thin. Okay, I think simply it just means we all sin, but we're not all evil. Just because a person sins doesn't make you evil. Achet is also quote unquote an unintentional sin. Now there are no accidents because accidents are carelessness. That means achet, you're not really a sinner. Either you're, whatever, you weren't careful, this and that. So I think there is a difference between we've sinned, okay, everybody sins, but not only have we sinned, we're evil. Now, by the way, since we just read Parshat Vayera, and Anshe Stom were Chataim ve'Reshaim Lashem Ma'od, right? That's what the Torah says. The people in Stom were very evil to God. So what was the evil of Stom? What made Stom Reshaim? It's not so clear. Right? It says in the pasuk when Lot moved there, Anshe Stom Reshaim bechatim Lashem Ma'od. They were evil and sinners to God very, very much. So what does it mean they were evil? How's the evil of Stom epitomized?
Well, in the Medrash, it says how they treated strangers or other people.
Right, so I don't really need a medrash for that. I mean, I can look in the Chumash. When Lot invites guests, they want to break his house down, basically. Right, so that's the Midrashim pick up on that the idea of how you mistreat the immigrant. And we know the most often repeated verse in the Torah, to be nice to strangers, you know what it's like to be an immigrant, a stranger, an outcast. Don't make that to others. That's one idea for sure. How do Chazal define it in Pirkei Avot? I think what's a midat stom? We say somebody acts like midat stom. So it's actually interesting. It's like you said, it's not really a sin to be midat stom. And the way Chazal define midat stom is when I'm not willing to help you even at no cost to me. One of you, Homer Shali Shali, the Shalach Shalach. What's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. Some say Zumitat Binonate, that's okay, you're not bad, I mind your own business. The Yeshomrim Zumitat Stom, this is the measure of Stom. And the rabbis define the measure of Stom. I'm driving home from a wedding and you came by public transportation after work and I'm going right by your house and I refuse to give you a lift. It's like, I refuse to do it, I don't go out of my way. So that's midat stom. I mean, unless they're a nudnik, they're going to drive you nuts. I don't know. But the idea is not willing to help. So that's also, not willing to help is not it's not right, but you're not, except in limited circumstances, you're not really violating Isser. Okay, I just wanted to point out that sort of idea between a sinner and evil. One, to point out, on the one hand, sinning, okay, we all sin, but evil, we're not all evil. Evil is evil. Or you can look at it the other way, that evil, it's not so hard to be evil, 50% plus 1. Evil doesn't mean you're a murderer, it just means you've got more sins than mitzvot. Anyways, back to Daniel. So we've sinned and we're evil, or sinning by definition is evil, whatever it is. So God, in your full righteousness, repent, yashav tshuva, return from your anger, that your anger on the city, you destroyed Jerusalem, you destroyed the city and the temple, Yerushalayim Harkot Yerushalayim, the place where the temple stands. Because of our sins. Now here a chatat means an unintentional sin, not so bad. Avon means an intentional sin because of the sins of our fathers, right? Daniel is talking. I don't know when he was alive. I don't know if he was alive for instructions. Maybe I should probably know this, but I don't know if I'm assuming he was not alive, that he was born in Babel, but I don't really know this. That it was because of the sins of our fathers that Jerusalem was destroyed. The Talmud says any generation that doesn't rebuild the temple is as if they destroyed it. It means if it's not rebuilt, so we're doing the same sins. But historically, technically, it's because of the sins of our fathers that it was destroyed. Now, I'll ask another interesting question, I think. What's the difference between af and chema? Well, what are they translated in English? Wrathful fury. That's very nice English. But what does it mean actually? What's the difference between af and chema? Anybody? So whenever we have questions like this,
Chema is more intense, possibly.
it could be, yeah, okay. All right. It's always who is the world's expert on the distinctions between words that are very similar.
Malbim.
The Malbim. So we'll take a look at the Malbim. Anybody, I happen to remember this from many years ago. I saw it in a totally different context. Anybody know where the terms af and chema appeared in the Torah? Hold on. Where af and chema appeared together in the Torah. So, I'm sorry?
Sur mecharon apecha.
Beta ego.
There's only charon. Where's there af there? Maybe there is af. There's no af.
There's no
Charon is angrier. So here's how the Malbim explains it. We're in the desert. We're about to go to the land of Israel, and the Jewish men start sinning with this is Balak.
Midjan.
Vayichar af Hashem b'Yisrael. God got angry. Af, vayichar af, his nose, right? His nose was angry. They have a little bit later here. Then we have Zimri sinning in public, and Pinchas killing them, and God giving Pinchas his blessing of peace, because what he did was really, had he asked if he could do it, he would have been told no. But in the heat of the moment, this anger of seeing this religious desecration, he killed him. It says, Heshivet Chamati. God had af, and then Heshivet Chamati. So the Malbim explains, if you want to see it inside, I don't know if you see it inside, but okay, I'll show inside. Why not? Resources. So the Malbim says, af is external anger, chema is internal anger. Af, you're not necessarily angry. He says, when a father gets mad at a son, he displays anger, but hopefully he's not really angry. He's just showing anger, so the kid will get upset. And the chema is when you keep the anger inside of you. And I don't have to tell you, that's a harsher anger. That anger is more dangerous when you keep, first of all, it's not healthy, like psychologically, got to get it off your chest. But we know, it boils inside of you. So af is, you yell at somebody. You may not even be angry at them. It's just a way to show your displeasure. And chema, you may not show any displeasure. You may smile at them when you see them in shul and wish them a good Shabbos. But boy, are you angry at them. You're going to stab them in the back. So the Malbim explains that God, when the Jewish people sinned, he was angry, but okay, they're sinning. Okay, what do you want? A bunch of slaves. Even though it's the next generation. We can understand it. But when Zimri, the head of the tribe of Shimon, sins in public, has relations in public, Unbelievable. So that God got really, really angry, and he was going to destroy the people. So Pinchas Heshiva Chamati, the Ab turned to Chema. When the sin was great, we managed to turn the sin from Av to Chema. Okay. Anyways, but yes, I think you're right. Chema is a harsher form of anger. It's the internal anger, whereas Af is the external anger, which may not even be true. Okay. No, that's Pinchas. Let's get back to Daniel. Okay, so obviously, as I said, he's praying for the city of Jerusalem because that's the context of Daniel. Okay, listen to the prayers of your servant, Vel Tachanun. And again, I think we mentioned last week, if I'm not mistaken, Tfilah and Tachanunim. Tachanunim is a more intense form of prayer, just like Af and Chema. Tachanunim is we're really in trouble. Tfilah is all kinds of nice things. Tfilah, as the Rambam says, you have to praise God, you have to thank God, and you can, Hallel can be part of Tfilah in a certain sense. Tfilah is our relationship to God. Tachanunim is like we're beseeching God, we're in trouble. So Tachanunim is like a more intense form of our needs. And God, show your face, right, to show favor. Right, the Gemara says, actually, it's very interesting. It says, we say every day, God should bless us and keep us. Right, what does that mean, bless and keep? Bless means we should have blessings, and Yishmerecha means the blessing shouldn't ruin us. Right, that's so true. We all know that. We want to, as the Netziv, I love this Netziv. I think, I'm sure I've said it before. For a Torah scholar, Yivarachach Hashem is we should be successful in our learning. We should have Hatzlach in our learning. What's Yishmerecha? You shouldn't become an arrogant elitist. Too many Talmidei Chachamim are arrogant and they look down upon people. Yishmerecha. You shouldn't, right? That's next week's parsha, 2 weeks parsha, right? The Gemara says a Talmud Chacham should have a shminit shebeshminit of gaiva. Should have an eighth of an eighth, a 64th of gaiva. In other words, in order to be great, you have to be slightly arrogant, because if you don't think highly of yourself, you're not going to motivate yourself. But we know that one trait of Moshe is to be humble. You know that the most important thing God is humble, right? So arrogance is terrible. The Gemara says God runs away from arrogance, and the natural sickness of Torah scholars is to be arrogant. We see it all over the place. So the Vilna Gaon has a beauty. So the Gemara says you have to have a little bit, an eighth of an eighth. Why not say 64th of a 64th? So I remember Reb Tabori told us Tova and a shminit shebeshminit. What's an eighth of an eighth? It's a cute word. I don't think it's the real meaning. What's the eighth parsha in the Chumash? Good. What's the eighth pasuk in Vayishlach?
Oh, cool.
Nobody. I'm
Whoa, that is
Yaakov
great.
Avinu was praying to God, Katonti, I'm a nobody. Such a beautiful word of the Vilna. Only the Vilna Gaon could come up. A shmini sheva shmini, an eighth of an eighth, the eighth pasuk of the eighth
That is
parsha.
great.
That's how much gaiva a Talmid Chacham is allowed to have. Yirach Hashem b'yishmerecha. And a businessman, Yivarach Hashem, we should be blessed with wealth. And Yishmerecha, you shouldn't become an arrogant SOB because you're a wealthy guy. And, I just read yesterday, I almost never go on Facebook, Baruch Hashem. I have waste enough time on the internet and all this other narishkeit. But I don't know what Instagram is and TikTok. I've never been there. Please God, I should never go there. But I have been to, I don't know, I clicked on some link and I got to a Facebook. I don't know if anybody saw this yesterday. Tzvi Sinensky posted about something cool yeshivas, and like everybody's here now, even in chat now. Every day they come to Toronto, they come to chat. Not so many kids from Chakot Yeshiva, but there are some. Every day they're at the girls' seminaries in the bush. They go to Orkheim at the Bnei Kiva school, and then they come to chat. So they're all here now. They all come to North America in November. The whole thing, that's a whole different story. So there's a whole thing now about cool yeshivas, not cool yeshivas. Everybody was writing about this. And I knew half the people who wrote, all these educators were writing in their comments that this is sort of a big issue, that, they're the cool yeshiva, and the cool yeshivas a lot today means actually money. That's what it often means, where the wealthy kids go. And it started saying, Today, there are way too many yeshivot. When I went to yeshiva in Israel, there were 5 yeshivas. That's it. 5 yeshivas in the whole country where an American boy could go. Hakotel, Shalavim, KBY, Gush, and BMT. That was it. There was
Right.
nothing else. Today, there are 510 new ones open up every year. It's ridiculous, but that's a different story. So it's a business. It's competition. You don't get kids. You don't have a parnasa. And many of these are private businesses. Gush, Hakotel, they're not private businesses. They're nonprofits. But these other whatever, so there's a lot of competition. So they accept, you have to accept kids who are wealthy. Whatever is actually a very sad comment. Everybody's writing how true this is. Okay, leave that aside. Yirach Hashem Yishmerecha, that you should be blessed with wealth. Wealth is a great blessing, but boy, do we need Yishmerecha when you have wealth. Anyways, okay, Ya'er Hashem Panav. That's where we're here. Yeah, we do so many, little side points. What's Ya'er? So God should show favor. So the Gemara says, that's what do you mean? God's not allowed to show favor. God is fair. Hashochat lo yikach lo yaverein chachamim v'salif divrei tzadikim. Taking any bribe, you can't show favoritism, right? And the halakha is very strict, right? The halakha in the Gemara says, if you walk into court and one of the litigants says good morning to the judge, that judge is disqualified from being on his case. I think today we don't have judges like that. We are all disqualified. We don't do real dinei Torah. We do compromise because you know that if somebody says one litigant says good morning to you and the other doesn't, even if you don't recognize it, it could be totally subconsciously. Your subconscious bias. It's impossible for a human being not to be biased. There's no such thing as a human being who's not biased. So the halakha tries very hard to get rid of biases. It can't do it 100%. So, but God, we should stand by. So the Gemara says, you're right, but it says in the Torah that when you eat a meal, kakatu v'achalta b'sabata ubeirachta. You have to thank God when you're satisfied. You don't have to bench if you have one piece of pizza, unless one piece of pizza fills you up. But if you're not full, and yet we all know if you eat just olive, a kazayit of bread, people say Berchan Hamazon. So look how beautiful the Jewish people are. They do mitzvot more than they have to. So if you do extra good for me, I'll show extra good for you. That's what the Gemara says. So God shows favoritism to the Jewish people, not because we are inherently different. God is to be fair to everybody, but because we go above and beyond. So everybody's like that. I mean, I don't want to say it like this, but you scratch my back, I scratch your back. Nice. So it's again, it's a very, I don't know, realistic, very beautiful way. But So I don't know if exactly this is all the meaning that Neil had, but means show favoritism to your destroyed temple for your sake, God. We don't deserve it. That's the whole thing. That's what we're asking God to do beyond what He should do. We're sinners. We're evil. It's our chates, our avonot. Not only are we evil, our parents were evil. Right? This is a very, one thing we say. We say other things. This is very anthropomorphic, verse. God, put your ear so you can hear us. Lift up your ear. Incline. Yeah, that's a good word to have in English. Incline your ear. Listen to us. Open your eyes. God, look at it. Look at it. It's not the same thing to hear about something and to see something. Right? Sorry. When God told Moshe that the Jewish people have sinned with the golden calf, He didn't break the tablets. He only broke the tablets when He came down and He saw it. And the rabbi said, we all know this. It's not the same thing to hear about something and to see it with your own eyes. So we're asking God, like we would ask a human being, God, look at the temple. See what it's like.
I'm going to see the lady again.
The city that has your name, right? Yerushalayim is the city that represents God. And we're not righteous. We don't deserve it. Because God, you're a very merciful God. And again, repeat the same thing, right? We're beseeching God, so we don't have to be exact with every word. Like, we can repeat themes all the time. Hashem Shma'ah, God, hear us, forgive us. Hakshiva. So what's the difference between Shema and Lakshiv? I think we know in modern Hebrew, right? Shema means to hear us. Hakshiva means to listen to us. I don't know what they say in English. Yeah, they do that. Oh, God, hear. You can hear somebody, meaning, I heard you. Okay, very nice, I heard you. In my ear of the other ear. Hakshiva, pay attention. act. Without a say, al tacher. I find this very interesting. We ask God, act now. We don't have time. We al tacher. We write, timing is everything. And act now, lemancha Elohai. Again, for us, I started to count yesterday. Please God, for next week, I'm going to count how many times in Tachanun it says we're doing it for God's name. Because God, if not for God, it looks bad on you, right? That's a theme we've discussed many, many times because it comes up all the time. That we ask God to have mercy for His name, because when the Jewish people suffer, God suffers, and that's in Kol Tito Fake. Rav Soloveitchik makes a big deal about this. That when he used to travel to New York before the war and before the state of Israel, all the Christian missionaries, God has forsaken you, God, which I understand why they said that. That's the way it looked after the Holocaust. God did forsake us a little bit, and Esther Panin. And only with the state of Israel, we restored the glory to God's name. He didn't forget about us. It took 2,000 years, but so the idea is that we're doing it for God, and we represent God in this world, and we ask that we not suffer. Forget about us. Again, it's like you're in the courtroom, so you're doing something, like, okay, if we're not worthy, but God, it looks bad upon you. Now, of course, God knows all this, but that's always our relationship with God, right? God, why does God need our prayers? I mean, that's the philosophical thing we discussed, I guess, right at the beginning, right? God, we're not praying for God's sake, we're praying for our sake, really. But here we're pleading with God to sort of, do it for yourself. He wants us to say that. He wants to hear us. Okay, and that's it. That's it from the part that's in Tachanun. I don't exactly know why it stopped here. Like the next verse. And I continue to speak and to pray. Right, mitaber umipalel umitvadeh, and to confess my sin, chatati, my sin, and the sin of the Jewish people. Umapel tchinati lifnei Hashem Elokai, and I pour out my supplications before God. So I have no idea why the authors of Tachanun, they took these verses, right? They took from here, verse 15, 16, 17, and 18, and 19. They took these 5 verses and stuck it in Tachanun, and they didn't verse 20. I looked at a few sources, nobody talks about it. If anybody has a reason, that would be very nice. You can let me know why they may have done that. Okay, doesn't really matter. I could be just taking I don't think question is so okay, I don't know why. Big
Well,
deal.
it's really isn't it leading into what happened next? And while I was speaking,
Okay, so you want to say now so this is already like current events, whereas the
Right, it's
right
like the narrator part. Like this is what he's retelling what he davened, and then it's saying while I was davening before.
but he's also talking here. Bata Hashem asher tzeit chatanu rishanu.
He's talking directly to God, and here he's going back to the storyline. While I was davening,
Okay, I hear. Good. Okay. What an right? Going back to the story. So that was an interruption. Okay, could very well be. All right, thank you. Okay.
Rabbi Kelman,
Yes.
I wanted to point out that the phrase "Hatei Elokai Aznacha Ushma" is used very often
In
in.
Slichas.
Oh, well, I didn't know that. Okay, thank you. In Mefarshim, they don't say "Hatei Elokai Aznacha," they say "Hatei Aznacha Ushma." The
Mefarshim do
Klei
a
Yakar.
Chumash?
The Klei Yakar says that all the time, and I looked it up, and that led me to Daniel, and now I encountered it in Tachanun. Like I came
Okay, there
around
you
it the other
go.
way.
So that's very
But
interesting. I love the Kli Yakar, though I haven't looked at it for a long time. I don't remember that, but right.
Hatei
Hatayalot-
Aznacha
okay.
meaning
Ushma.
when he's speaking to the reader, is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
So you have to
it's in
Okay.
understand.
part and part. He always spoke in
Ah,
the marketplaces. He
right. So
gathered
Kli
people.
Yakar, Rav Ephraim
Yes,
Lunchitz, who was the
right,
chief rabbi of Prague. So I mentioned many times here the most what's the word? The most decorated shul in the world history. The shul that has the
right.
greatest rabbis is the Altai shul in Prague. No shul anywhere in the world. We've had shuls with great rabbis, but no shul has had the list of great rabbis that the Altai shul. And
Prestigious.
those of you
Right.
who've been there, it's not such a fancy shul. It's a little small building, and with that, there's no mechitza. Well, now there's some. Who's been to the Altai shul? If you put on your cameras and raise your hand, that's even nicer, right? You've been to the Altai shul. So they didn't have a mechitza. What woman went to shul in the 13th century? And now they basically, the wall is thick. It's like a 2 feet thick wall, and they basically banged a hole like a little window to make a hole in the wall. So about 6 places the woman can stand and look in the window to see what's going on in the men's section. That's the way it was. What can I tell you? So the
Wow.
Alpei Shul, the Maharal and the Noda B'Yehuda and the Tosfot Yontif, it's one after another. The Tshuva Me'ava, who I mentioned last week, Shivit Hashem L'Negdi Tamid, that we should see God as opposed to us. Like we have to work hard because God is always looking to make guilty. Not that that's necessarily true, but that's how we should see ourselves, right? A very also powerful idea. So the Kli Yakar was the rabbi in Prague, and he was a preacher, I think. And if anybody, I'm not an expert in Kli Yakar, but I do love the parts I've read. He's really very insightful, and he's giving sermons. It's not like the Ramban who's giving a commentary on Chumash. He's giving Musar, and he's letting the people have it. And by the way,
Yes.
one of the things he let the people have it, along the lines we were saying, is the wealth. There's a lot of
Yes.
wealth in Prague, and the Jews were showy, and he said that's very dangerous. And I remember in Dvarim, Moshe was a Chadasar Yom with Dei Zahav. So Rashi says Dei Zahav is a reference to the Ched Egel, and the Kli Yakar says Dei Zahav is a reference to the wealthy people in Prague who show off their wealth. I mean, as a preacher, obviously, as a commentary, it's different. So the Kli Yakar commentary on Chumash is very much like sermons, and it's very beautiful if you read it. So thank you, Debbie. I don't know. Sadly, the Torah Chaim Mikra Gedolot removed the Kli Yakar, right? The Mikra Gedolot is like that's like in the majors how they're printed. So what gets printed in Mikra Gedolot? So it's changed. There's no one standard what's in Mikra Gedolot. I mean, everyone has Rashi, Ramban, Sforno, Ibn Ezra, the basics, but different Mikra Gedolot have different ones. So the Mosada Rav Kook, I don't know, 30 years ago, printed a new one, the blue ones.
The
The Torah
Torah Chaim.
but the Torah Chaim Mikra Gedolot, so they took out the Orach Chaim because it's too Kabbalistic, and they took out the Kli Yakar. They added in Rav Saadia Gaon, who wrote his commentary in Arabic, one of the first commentators in the Chumash. They put in Radak, Chizkuni. And so, everybody puts in who they think is important, right? It's like in the Talmud, I don't think anybody, in the Talmud, if printing is whoever the printer is makes a huge deal, right? That's the joke.
They
Rabbi.
just translated this year the Kli Yakar to English, the art scroll.
Did they really? Okay. Yeah, everything today's translated. Okay. It's good and bad. It's not so good, everything to be translated. I'm against the Kli Yakar maybe. As you know, I'm against the translation of the Mishnah Berurah. Somebody who needs the Mishnah Berurah in English should not be learning Mishnah Berurah. What I said earlier, we're too halakhic arts. We have broader things in halakha. The Mishnah Berurah is it's unbelievable, whatever, but that's a symptom of this idea that every little line in the Mishnah Berurah, people didn't, whatever. If you don't know the Mishnah Berurah in Hebrew, you should not be learning Mishnah Berurah.
But
There's a reprinted 2-volume on Kli Yakar that's beautiful
Okay.
without so many Rashi Tevot.
Okay, yeah, that's okay. That's back here. Anyways, okay, I didn't
Rabbi,
know that. Yeah,
on
Marty, you
the
want to ask something?
on the same theme that you've been talking about, the rabbi down, my rabbi down here told me a beautiful, very short story. If you look at the hero tone that you said before you do Birchas HaChodesh,
Yeah.
it said you asked for ear twice. Why do you ask
For years, okay. So when we get to Birchas HaChodesh, right, it says Yirat Shemaim twice in Birchas. We do Rosh Chodesh benching is tomorrow, right?
you know why you
bench Rosh
say
Chodesh.
ear twice?
Yeah. Oh,
Because,
you want to tell me the answer?
yeah, because between the two, between the two eras, what is it find you ask for being a OSHA recovery. So
Okay, I
if
got it.
you want
Very
to,
nice. Yeah, you heard right. We say, you hear, I don't remember it by heart. I know you said in between the 2 years Shemaim is Osher, is wealth. We pray for wealth. So you need to pray a second time for your Shemaim after Osher. That's very cute. Very good. Thank you. Yes. Okay. All right. Let's get back here to Tachanun Hateyas Nacha Shema. Right. Okay. God, listen up. No, that's Daniel again. Okay, here we are. Okay, so this was that was the paragraph before. This was the paragraph we did in Daniel, right? Hashem, okay, where did I get lost here? Yeah, here it is. This is what I have pulled. That's from Daniel, and then we go Hatei as Elohai's Nechashma, right? We started doing that. Right. It's not our righteousness. Hashem Shema, I think maybe I skipped before. Okay, anyways, Hashem Shema, God listen, forgive us, Hakshiva, pay attention, do not delay, right? Go right away. Your name is in Jerusalem. Like how Jerusalem is, that's the city. Today, okay, it's holy for three religions, whatever, but still we know that, and unfortunately, some of our enemies want to deny the Jewish connection to Jerusalem. But we know the Mancha Kishim Chanikra, your name is on the city of Jerusalem and on your people. Then we say, Havenu Avarachman, God, our merciful God, show us a sign and gather in the exiles. Is that one or two things, or that's one thing? In other words, is the sign of God, Harenu Atatova, right? Otot Moftim. God took us out of Egypt with Otot, signs and Moftim, wonders, miracles. Like he demonstrated, that, wow, he's our God, Otot Moftim. So God demonstrate both to us and really to the world, as we'll see. It's really here for the world. God, show us a sign that the nation shall know, right? Abraham is Av among Goyim. Right? Jews have a universal mission. 2,000 years of exile has caused many Jews to forget about the universal mission of the Jewish people. I re-listened to the tape this week. I told Yocheved, giving this year in the Rav, I re-listened this week to the Rav Shir on Chayei Sarah. It's just unbelievably fantastic. It's you can go to the OU and find it. The Rav gave a shir, I don't know how many years ago, probably 50 years ago, probably in the 70s. On Chayei Sarah was 100 years and 20 years and 7 years. And the Rav so beautifully talks about how Sarah was young and old at the same time. She was 7 and, right, the Rav develops this idea that only a child can pray and only an adult can learn. I mean, I'm just going to say 1 or 2 minutes, this snippet, right? In order to learn, you have to be sophisticated and critical and skeptical, and you can't accept something. The Rav says it like black and white. You can't accept something just because your Rebbe told you. If it doesn't make sense to you, you're not allowed. You have to be a skeptic even of your Rebbe. And you have to have critical thinking, that's learning, adult. But only a child can pray. Childhood is total surrender to God, and where learning is total independence and prayer is total dependence. And the greatness of Sarah, only a 7-year-old can pray, but only a 20-year-old or 100 can learn. Sarah was both. Sarah, as the Rav says, I remember the wording, the adult in Sarah didn't kill the child. Right, childhood is innocence, and there's so much beauty. And we grow up, we become cynical, And so the Sarah was blessed that the adult in her didn't kill the child. So it's part of the talk. The Rav talks about that's why it's Chayei Sarah. Then he talks about Ger B'Toshav. He says I'm a Ger B'Toshav. So the Rav says that's the status of the Jew. I think it was mentioned last night. Rabbi Siegel mentioned it in this year. We're both Gerim and Toshavim at the same time. We're strangers, but we're also part of the world. We're concerned. And then he says, who else is buried in Maran HaMachpelah? So besides afterwards Yitzchak and Rivka and Leah and Yaakov, it's Adam and Chava, right? It's called Kiryat Arba, the 4 couples who are buried there. So the Rav said, why did the rabbi, and do we really know if they're buried there? I don't care if it's literally true, but they say that Abraham and Sarah, right, are buried. Why? because we're part of Adam and Chava. A Jew is not divorced from the human race. We have to be together. We're human beings first before we're Jews. So this is even in Tachanun, where we're beseeching God to save us in Jerusalem and the temple and the unique relationship. We do it so it's important the nations of the world should know. Now, maybe the nations, they won't harm us, whatever, but God is the God of the entire world. We're the captain of the team. God created the world. He wanted everybody's in the image of God. He wanted every relationship with everybody, but it didn't work. So he had to bring a flood. So he tried again with Noah, and Noah's going to be the father of mankind. That didn't work either. So he had to disperse us into 70 nations. Okay, then I got to pick one nation as the captain of the team, but we're part of the same team. We're just the captains. And we got to demonstrate to the whole world the beauty of morality and ethics. Right? The pasuk in Dvarim, Moshe says, keep the Torah, because it's your wisdom among all the nations of the world, right? You know that verse? Let me show you that verse. It's such a powerful verse that it's like unbelievable. And I think we don't pay enough attention to it. Like it's unbelievable, the verse. Why do we keep Torah? So Moshe says the reason we keep the Torah is to impress the nations of the world. I've taught you chukim mishpatim that God has said that you're going to come to the land. Ushmartem basitem. Why should you keep the Torah? So the nation of the world say, wow, the Torah is so smart. They're going to hear all these laws and they say, Rakam chacham because the Jewish people are so smart. And this has a double meaning. They're so smart morally. They're so beautiful, having a Shabbat, having to give tzedakah, treating strangers. Wow, what a beautiful way of life. The nations are going to be blown away when we keep the Torah. What family life, so amazing. And we also have to be the startup nation. The Gemara on Shabbos 75a says, how do you know Jews have to study science? Because it's Rakam Chacham. What's the Chachma of the nations of the world? Is science. That's where science and astrology. At the time of Talmud is astrology. Today it's AI. Whatever it has to be, we have to be the Amcha. Whatever the nation of the world consider great wisdom, science and technology. That's what a Jew has to be. So there's moral wisdom and scientific wisdom, and that's why we have to keep the Torah. So we impact the world. That's what it says here. It's like unbelievable, and we have to study all this. That's a Jew. That's how the Rambam says. How do you fulfill the mitzvahs Avat Hashem? This is the second chapter in the Rambam of the 1,000 chapters in the Torah. How do you fulfill the mitzvah of Avat Hashem? The Rambam starts. You have to love God. You have to love God and fear God. How do you love God? Okay, I'll pull it up too. Give me a second here. Where are we here? Share my screen. You might as well see it inside because I want you to, in case you think I'm not telling the truth, I have to show you I'm not making this up. I mean, whatever. It's good to see inside. Where are we going here? Safari. Okay, go to Halacha. Go to Mishnah Torah. Go to Foundations of Torah. This is the beginning, chapter 2. This is the second chapter. This wonderful God, awesome God, there's a mitzvah to love him, and you have to fear him. We say, how do you love and fear God? So you have to study science. When a person yitbonein, it doesn't mean you read a physics book. It means you take a PhD in physics. When you yitbonein, you studied, so you have bina, so you understand, right? Bonein, it's more than just a study. And you study cosmology and chemistry and biology, and you'll see what an amazing world to start. Wow, how does this world work? You see how a baby's born, what has to work, and DNA, and unbelievable. There's no, it's unending. It's just amazing what God created. The locates, it doesn't end. So he's going to love God. He's going to love the Creator. So this, now you can understand. I know people burned this books, parts of the Rambam. Yes, there are people who burned the Rambam over this. Okay, what can you do? But we don't burn the Rambam. We love the Rambam. So this is amazing. And I just got an email this week. I'm very impressed, if I can say. I got a WhatsApp this week from somebody who used to be a shaliach in Toronto. And he says, I remember you gave a shiur a few years ago. He remembers the shiur better than I remember it. And in that shiur, you said that Norman Lamb said that really was explaining why we don't say Birchas Torah on physics. Right? If you get up in the morning and you study physics, you don't have to say Birchas Torah. If you get up in the morning and you study Mishnah, you have to say Birchas Torah. Why don't you? So he didn't remember. It's more holy, this and that. So it's remember, I don't remember exactly what he said at that shiur, but I do remember what Mark Shapiro has in his book. What he said, he sent Norman Lamb a letter. Mark Shapiro sent Norman Lamb 30 years ago. Why don't we say Birchas? I mean, he's not going to send it to some Rav in Bnei Brak. Obviously, you send it to the head of Yeshiva University, where we believe Torah Mata, where we believe in the importance of study science. So why don't you say Birchas Torah? So Dr. Lamb gave it, it's not real Torah. The answer wasn't so good. The question's better than the answer. Well, why isn't physics part of Torah? And you know that Shimshon, as far as I understand, Shimshon Raphael Hirsch in his school in Germany only hired Shomer Shabbos teachers of general. There's no general studies. Everything's Torah. Physics is Torah. You wouldn't hire a non-religious Jew to teach Talmud. I mean, maybe some would. I don't know, university, whatever. But in a yeshiva, they're not going to hire a non-Shomer Shabbos person to teach Talmud. So you don't hire a non-Shomer Shabbos person to teach physics or even English literature or German literature, whatever they study there. It's amazing. YU does not do that, right? Most schools do not. They hire non-Jews, they're non-religious Jews. It doesn't matter. But it is an unbelievable idea that wisdom, that's what the Torah says. We have to be the wisest nation. So that Israel's the startup nation is a fulfillment of the mitzvah in the Torah. When Israel is the world's leader in water technology and on ways and all these amazing things that Israel has invented and iron domes and all that. Wow, that's a fulfillment of the pasuk. And the truth matter, it helps Israel diplomatically when they have these great inventions and they can help other countries. But okay. All right, back here. You see what you can learn in Tachanun? See what Tachanun, when you say Tachanun, so much you can think about and to learn. Beautiful. Okay, so let's get back to Tachanun itself. But otherwise, Tachanun's boring. I said, now we're going to want to say Tachanun, right? Okay, so I asked the question, is this one or two things? So you could explain the simple ways, probably. God, show us a sign. We're asking God, forgive us, rebuild the temple, bring us back, all this thing. What's the sign? When Jews come back to the land of Israel, when the Zionist movement starts, that's the sign from God. That's it. If people can come from the four corners of the world, that's it. That is God. It's like the old joke, the guy there's the flood and he's on the roof. And, everybody knows that joke. And they come by, no, I'm waiting for God to save me, waiting for God. The boat comes by and says, I'm waiting for God to save me. And that's it, he dies. So he gets up and God said, why he says, God, why did you save me? He said, what do you mean, why didn't I save you? I sent you a boat, I sent you a plane, and you didn't want to take it. So when God speaks to us through history, so we come back to the land of Israel. Obviously, this is not the way they're going to interpret it in Satmar. I get it. But in our world, this is clearly, that's the ot. The ot l'tova, the good sign, is when we come back to the land of Israel. You could divide it into two. God, show us a sign, show us miraculous signs, wonderfully. And the sign can be, have pity upon us, even in America. Make sure we have good mayors and good elected politicians, right? We have both in Toronto and New York. We have very similar mayors. I don't think the mayor of Toronto is any better in terms of Israel than the mayor of New York, but that's a different story. Avinu Avarachaman, right? Show us a sign here and bring us back to land. Okay. Yakir ve'yedu, in order that all the nations shall know, that you, the Lord, are our God. You, the Lord, our God. Again, the nations world. Avinu, you're our Father. Anachnu hachomer v'atayatzreinu. This is like Yom Kippur, Pianu hachomer b'yad hayotzer, right? We are like the clay in the hands of the potter. Anachnu hachomer b'yad hayotzer. God, we are the material, the raw, and you created us, you refined us. We are the embodiment of your work. Your masayatav, when a person works for a living, that's masayatav. His efforts create something. So we human beings are the result of the efforts of God. We're the extension of God. So therefore, God, you have to have pity on us. Again, Hosheinu Lamad Shemecha, over and over. God, for your sake. Surenu, Malkeinu, Golenu, a three-way description of God. God is our Tzur, God is our rock solid, like the Rock of Gibraltar, right? The insurance company, right? What's that old commercial? We did that commercial, right? Surenu, you're a rock. Sur Yisrael, V'goalenu, right? That's in the Declaration of Independence in Israel, because the non-religious, the anti-religious, refuse to have the name of God. Not like in O Canada we say God bless God. O Canada, what do we say? God bless our land. That's how Canada is. But in the Israeli national anthem, there's no mention of God, because the people who founded Israel, not all of them were founding it like because of Tachanun, asking to sing the sign of God. It was for different reasons. Okay, but Sur, you can interpret it. So it could be interpreted to God or whatever. But of course, we interpret Surenu that God is rock solid. There, Malkenu, he's our king. He's a king, means we're his servants, but he rules. God is ruling. And Goalenu, and he's a redeemer. He's a redeemer. And therefore, Chus Hashem alamecha, God have pity on your nation. Don't give your nachala. Your nachala is your inheritance. We're the inheritance of God. To be embarrassed, right? Chaim Shem Bush. Oh no, it's klima. We shouldn't be. And what's the degradation? That non-Jews rule over us. If the Jewish people do not have independence, that's the exile is meant as a punishment. It's terrible. It's an embarrassment to the Jewish people when we don't, when non-Jews rule over us. What can we do? And it also means, you understand, if non-Jews rule over us, we can't keep half the Torah, right? We're so used to, especially, talk to, what's Judaism? Judaism, kosher, Shabbos, all these nice things, beautiful. But half of Judaism is about the national mitzvot. That's sacred dvarim. When I read you the quote, that's a national mitzvah, right? The nation of Israel has to show wisdom, right? We have to invest in education and all these things, right? Sacred dvarim are the nationalistic mitzvah. So they've been in abeyance for 2,000 years. And now we're recreating it. How to create a judicial system, how to set up an army, how to set up an economy, how to set up a social justice system, all that stuff. That's all in Sefer Dvarim. How to set up a political system, a king. So that's part and parcel. When the non-Jews are ruling over us, those things obviously become impossible. Okay, just quickly, maybe one more sentence, and then gotta go and teach. Okay, yeah. Lama Yomru Bami Maye Elohim. So we'll pick up on this next week. Where this is said in the Torah, it's not necessarily where you think, or it's not as often as you think. But why should the nations of the world say, "Where is their God?" That's our plea. That comes over and over again. That's what Rav Soloveitchik was saying. God has forsaken you. So God, it's more than for your sake. Why? Now it's like almost Chilul Hashem. The nation of the world will say, "Your God has forsaken you," which is exactly what Christianity is all about, right? Christianity at its basis is that God made a relationship, made a covenant with the Jewish people, and that's wonderful. The Jewish people are wonderful, but now God, we're over. We lost that covenant, and God made a new covenant. We have a New Testament. So that's exactly what they said. Okay, we can discuss a little bit next week, and how that colors our relationship with them. Okay, let's just quickly review a little bit. So we went through the psukim in Daniel. That Daniel, in the context, it's the 70th year. They're in Jerusalem, right? And he's God's replaced. So he's focusing on the anger. God shouldn't be angry at Jerusalem. He should rebuild Jerusalem. Our sins, our father's sins. We discussed the difference between a chote and a rasha. Right? It was simple. You sin, but it doesn't make you a rasha. The Rambam says, 51% that, but you can sin, not rasha, or Nabal B'Shut Torah. You can not sin and be a rasha, where you missed the whole essence of the Torah. We don't just focus on a lot of their broader things we have to focus on. We discussed the difference between Ap and Chema, internal anger and external anger by Pinchas, right? God, Pinchas said, because when they sinned in public, God had Chema. That's much worse. Ap, you display anger. You may not even really be anger. And what else did we discuss? God, of course, they should bring us back to the land of Israel. That's the sign of our relationship to God coming back to Israel. We have to be a smart nation, a nation of Chachma, Binah. We discuss Yerushem Panav, favoritism, right? God shows Yivarech Hashem, blessings are important, wealth, learning, but not if it's going to cause us to be arrogant. And we can only be at an eighth of arrogance, katonti. You can have, that's how much arrogance you have, which is basically nothing, 1/64th. And no, that's an important message. That's Moshe Anibis. Okay, and Prospect Park Yeshiva High School, founded by my uncle, of course, my uncle Abraham Kelman. Back in the day, we're all with college degrees, and there's day when Prospect Park started, it was a co-ed school. Maybe I'm not supposed to tell you that. But when my uncle started Prospect Park Tova, one was in 1950, 1951. When did Uncle Levi start Prospect Park Yeshiva? He moved to New York in 1950. So it was probably a little bit afterwards. He got smicha at 19 from Rabbi Price, was a rabbi in Toronto. Then he moved to New York and founded Prospect Park. And it was a co-ed school when it first started. To live in a different world. Okay, at the Tradition Summit, occasionally reported that most students just want to know the bottom line. That's correct. That's unfortunate. That's what Gemara is. Gemara is not the bottom line. Gemara is the process. Yeah, we're very halachically centric. Yeah, it's not so good. Halach is important. Rabbi Amital wasn't saying halach is not important, but this focus and everything, you have to, it's like, it's a little bit different. Okay, Mishnah Berurah published by the Pishka Foundation 94 District Field. I'm Hebrew, English, had it for many years. Okay, you want to look up a word? I don't know. I don't. Okay, we can discuss later. But I feel if you totally need the English, if you can't understand anything, a word here, everybody, I get that. But Mishnah Berurah is not meant to be learned in English. You can't really. It's not proper. You won't apply it properly. Okay, the idea that Torah stands for intelligence and great wisdom has been noticed by South Koreans. Yeah, that's what they say. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, everybody, I got to go now teach my students in chat to make them smart, I hope, and morally smart. So please God, see you next week and invite a friend. Rabbi Leaf Pack starts 11:15. Shuli Michigan starts your series next Thursday. We'll send out a registration form later. Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat
Thank
Shalom.
you. Okay, bye-bye. Shalom.
תודה רבה ושבת שלום.
Shabbat
Thank you.
shalom.